Affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
You may have a seat. All right, Mr. Truman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tell us your name, please.
My name is Joseph Stevens, and my last name is spelled Stephens.
And are you employed?
Yes, I currently work at the FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia, FBI being the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
And do you have a job title?
I do. I'm a chemist, forensic examiner at the lab there in the chemistry unit.
And what's your primary duties as a chemist for the FBI?
My primary duties are to receive evidence from contributors. Those contributors can be state, local, or federal partners. We receive that evidence through our evidence management unit, and that's passed up to the individual units such as myself.
No, I hate to interrupt, but could Mr. Stevens slow down just a little bit? I'm having a little trouble following his testimony.
All right. Perhaps you can scoot up a little bit towards the microphone and slow down just a little bit, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Truman.
Go ahead, Mr. Stevens.
So we receive evidence from our evidence management unit. It comes up to our chemistry unit where it's assigned to an examiner, such as myself. I then intake that evidence, check it in, determine what kind of evidence I have, what kind of analyses I need to do. And then I process that evidence and I issue a report. This will be a forensic report or a laboratory report. And then as needed, I testify to those observations and findings that I made.
How long have you worked for the FBI?
I started working at the FBI in April of 2016, so I've been there for a little more than 8 years.
And you started as a forensic chemist, and that's what you do now?
That is correct.
And, what kind of experience did you have before you went to work for the FBI as a forensic chemist?
Before the FBI, I worked at the United States Secret Service in Washington, D.C. They have a forensic document laboratory. There I performed instrumental analysis on inks, papers, and toners, and I did that for about 10 years. I started there in December of 2005 through April of 2016.
Would you please share with us your educational background?
I earned a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry from Roanoke College in Virginia. After that, I attended Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas. I did not earn a degree from that, but I transferred to the George Washington University, where I earned a Master of Science in Forensic Science in 2007.
Did you receive any specialized training in forensic chemistry?
Yes. So as part of my training at the United States Secret Service, I completed a 2-year training program there. And upon my arrival at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, I completed another 2-year training program there as well.
In this particular case, do you have any specialized training that would qualify you to determine an analysis that would result in a finding of insulin?
Yes. So as part of our 2-year training program at the FBI, I conducted practicals, which I work with insulin, putting it on my instrumentation and analyzing it. And then I'm eventually given what's known as a competency test to ensure that I know how to perform the analysis. And I successfully completed that competency test. And then there's also other components of that training, such as oral boards, where a panel of my peers evaluate my knowledge on topics.
Your Honor, at this point, the state, subject to defense inquiry, moves that the witness be treated under 702 as an expert.
Do you wish to engage in voir dire, Mr. Selden?
No, Your Honor.
Is there any objection to the state's request?
No, Your Honor.
This witness will be regarded as an expert in his described field.
Yeah, this marked as states 9 and 10, please.
9 and 10, Your Honor.
Thank you.
is a box and a lid. Approach the witness, sir.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Stevens, I hand you what's been marked at this point as for identification as States 9, and feel free to open the envelope and review it. You familiar with that?
Yes, I am.
Before we get to that point, how is it that States 9 came into your possession?
This case came in through our Pittsburgh field office, which is the field office responsible for this area. So it came in as a case submission through Pittsburgh.
And what were you asked to examine, not only this, but the rest of the documents, the items we're going to review with you? What were you asked to examine them for?
I was submitted 4 items. One of them was a box, and 3 of them were vials containing unknown substances or unknown liquids. I was asked to analyze the unknown liquids within those vials.
And there's another item in that package, correct?
Yes, there is.
You got 10, sticker 10. I'm gonna have to do it on- I'll just put it on, you've got a package in here. I'll bring it back to you. If you could put, probably the easiest way to do it, how do you want to handle the bottle? You can put it right on everything. Okay. Yeah, that's anywhere. Bottom's fine, that's good. And what's been marked for identification is States 10. You identify that, sir?
The item states exhibit number 10 is a vial of methyl prednisone acetate that I received in the lab.
Let's go ahead and get all the exhibits in front of you.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to that answer in that we have not established what was in the vial. The only thing that can be testified to at this junction is that it is a vial with a label marked methylprednisone acetate.
Seriously? That's your objection?
I think that's where we are in the process, and hopefully we'll find out more. I'm going to overrule the objection.
Okay. Have this marked as 11, please.
Number 11, Your Honor.
Very well.
Done. Approach the witness, please.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Hand you what's been marked for identification in States 11. Ask you to identify that.
Do you happen to have a pair of scissors? This is still sealed.
This is the one with scissors. Okay. Don't run with those.
Thank you.
Can you identify that, sir?
This is a vial of dried material now was labeled in the lab as item 2-1, but it states exhibit number 11 that I generated as a result of my analysis.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand any of that. What was that vial?
I thought you didn't want him to answer that.
I don't think we've gotten to that point yet.
No.
I'm going to
His
overrule the
identification,
objection.
I couldn't understand what he was classifying that as. I'm just asking him to repeat it a little slower if possible.
So this item was the liquid contents removed by me from state's exhibit number 10.
Thank you.
If I could have this marked as states 12, please.
Very well.
Of course I will. Maybe. May I approach the witness, please?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
And what's been marked for identification is states 12. Ask you to take a look at that.
This is a bottle of that's labeled as enclomiphene citrate that I received in the lab.
Put it back in the bag if you want to. Because of the number, which one of these do you want? 13. Your Honor, if I could have State's Exhibit 13 marked here, please.
Okay.
This is number 13, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stevens, I hand you what's been marked for identification as States 13 and ask you to take a look at that, please. Do you recognize that?
Yes, this is the liquid that I removed from state's exhibit 12.
Okay. Oops. If I could have this 14, please.
This is number 14, Your Honor.
Very well.
Once again, if I could approach the witness, please, Your Honor.
Yes.
Hand you what's been marked for identification as States 14. have, I believe, with you number 15.
It's 14.
Right, but he's also got 15. Do we need a separate?
15 needs to be marked, is that right, Mr. Truman?
It does, Your Honor. Thank you.
This is 15, Your Honor.
Very well.
And Your Honor, I'll hand this to the witness if that's acceptable.
Yes.
Thank you. Hand you what's been marked for identification as states 15. Recognize that.
Yes, that's the liquid contents I removed from States Exhibit 14.
Mr. Stevens, explain to us the procedure that when you received this, what did you do with these items?
The first thing I did is administrative, it's we call it a check-in,
Okay.
where I analyzed, where I visually inspect these and see what kind of things I received. So the first thing I noticed was the box, which is States Exhibit 9. The next thing was the first vial that I came across, States Exhibit 10. And the contents of that, which have been labeled as States Exhibit 11. I got another vial, States Exhibit 12. The contents of that vial, States Exhibit 13. And a third vial, and its liquid contents. So I had 3 vials, and then of those 3 liquids that were generated. And I just took inventory of what I had, what the bottles were labeled as, what markings they might have had on them, what lot information they had. If they had a manufacturer, what was that manufacturer? So that visual examination was first.
I think I failed to ask you to identify 14.
States Exhibit 14 is a vial that's labeled as Humalog Insulin List Pro. 10 milliliters, 100 units per milliliter.
In summary fashion, tell us what you did to perform your analysis.
So each of these items goes through a standard operating procedure or a technical procedure where we analyze them. We use scientific instruments to analyze them. We compare them to references where practical, and then we determine the results of those analyses.
Take a look at 10, please. What was your analysis of that?
So for States Exhibit 10, I determined that States Exhibit 10, the vial labeled methyl, prednisone, acetate, and the liquid that came out of it, States Exhibit 11, is the one I actually tested.
Explain that to us, please.
So States Exhibit 10 is the physical vial. States Exhibit 11 was the liquid recovered from that vial, the liquid that came out of this vial. So my analysis was on the liquid.
Okay. Now, the States 11, that was lab material. You have a inventory of bottles that you use for your analysis. Is that what that is?
We have libraries and reference materials that we use, yes.
Okay, but the actual container itself, I mean, did that come with the information that came to you, or was that just some kind of testing process that you used?
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, as I understood what your testimony was, you analyzed the contents of number 10 by putting it into 11.
I didn't analyze the contents of 10, the vial. I transferred those contents to States Exhibit 11.
That's, okay.
And then I analyzed States Exhibit 11. So,
We're on the same page now, I think. Go ahead and explain what you did.
so visual examination on 10, what were the labels and markings on the bottle? Then chemical analysis on the liquid that was within this bottle.
And again, in summary fashion, what did you do to analyze States 11?
States Exhibit 11 was subjected to 3 different other kinds of testing. They're all scientific instrumentation. One of them is known as Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy. The next one, gas chromatography, mass spectrometry. And the final one, we call DART-TOF-MS, which stands for Direct Analysis in Real Time, Time of Flight Mass Spectrometry. All of these are very expensive, complicated instruments. Their primary goal is to determine the chemical composition of the materials within a liquid or a solid.
What's the number of that one? What's the number of that one?
10, 11, 12.
Okay. Go ahead and talk about 12,
Yes.
please. What was number 12?
12 was a vial labeled enclomiphene citrate, 30 milliliters, and on that vial it says for research purposes only, not for human consumption. That was the vial. This vial generated States Exhibit 13, which is the liquid that came out of that vial.
And so you actually performed your examination on states 13, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And tell us again in summary fashion, what did you do with states 13?
States Exhibit 13 was subjected to the same analytical scheme as States Exhibit 11, Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy, or FTIR, gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, GCMS, and DART-TOF MS, direct analysis in real time, time-of-flight mass spectrometry.
And this one's 14? And 14, what did you do with states 14 when you received it?
So visually examined it, determined that it was labeled insulin, Lispro, and Humalog, and then separated the content into a new vial, States Exhibit 15, the liquid, and analyzed the liquid.
And that's the analysis you conducted on states 15?
That is correct.
Was your analysis such that you could conclude what was contained in those bottles that you received?
Yes.
And what conclusions did you reach?
For the vial that was labeled methyl prednisone acetate and the liquid that was tested, States Exhibit 11, is my determination that that States Exhibit 11 was consistent with containing methyl prednisolone acetate. In other words, the chemical that is on the vial, it was consistent with containing the chemical labeled on the vial.
And I forgot the number, but the next one you analyzed.
States Exhibit 12, the bottle labeled enclomiphene citrate, was my conclusion that the liquid that came out of that, States Exhibit 13, was consistent with containing glycerol and letrozole. I'll remind you that the bottle is labeled enclomiphene citrate, so it was not what was labeled on the bottle.
The stuff according to the label was not the stuff you found.
That is correct.
And last, the next exhibit.
This was States Exhibit 14, the vial labeled Humalog insulin Lispro, is my conclusion that is consistent with containing human insulin or Humalog.
From the information provided, you took a number of photographs of the items that you've been reviewing with the jury today, correct?
Yes.
Could I have that smart, please?
State Exhibit number 16, Your Honor.
Okay.
Oops, excuse me. Ran out of arm. Stephen, on States Exhibit 16 for identification, You took that photograph?
Yes, I did.
What are we looking at? Oh, thank you.
These are photographs that I took of the State's Exhibit 9 as received in the laboratory.
And that's the box.
That is correct.
And what's that?
That is another picture of State's Exhibit 9.
You also took that photograph?
I did.
And what is that depicting?
This is State's Exhibit 10 as received, which at the time contained State's Exhibit 11, the liquid.
The next photograph you took, what's the significance of the plastic cover?
This plastic cover is used as a tamper-evident control so that when the septum that would be expected to be underneath there, and in this case there's a septum, a rubber material that's in the center, couldn't be inadvertently punctured.
Had there been any tampering of the exhibit by the time that you received it?
When I visually inspected it and tried to remove that, the force that I was using, which I described as a moderate force, was insufficient to remove that, implying to me that it was probably intact.
And the next photograph.
These are pictures that I took of State's Exhibit 12 with the liquid being inside State's Exhibit 13.
And the next one.
These are pictures I took of State's Exhibit 14 with the liquid being inside State's Exhibit 15.
The last photograph.
These are close-ups of State's Exhibit 14, the vial.
At the conclusion of your study of all of these exhibits, did you write a report of your findings?
I did.
If I could have this last exhibit, Mark, please.
State's Exhibit number 17, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Let me give you that one, and I'll trade you that one. Thank you. And what's been marked for dedication as State 17? You recognize that?
I do. This is the report I issued dated July 20th, 2021.
And could you share with us your conclusions that you embodied in that report, please?
So the conclusions that are embodied in this report are that State's Exhibit 11, the liquid from the methyl prednisone labeled bottle, were consistent with containing methyl prednisone acetate, which is the chemical that was labeled on the bottle, State's Exhibit 10. State's Exhibit 12, the liquid that came out of there, State's Exhibit 13, is consistent with containing letrozole and glycerol. Those are not the chemicals labeled on the bottle. The bottle is labeled as enclomiphene citrate. And State's Exhibit 14, the bottle labeled Humalog insulin Lispro. And the contents, State's Exhibit 15. State's Exhibit 15, the liquid, is consistent with containing human insulin / Humalog.
Stevens, what was your report that you have in front of you and you've just reviewed with us, was that the only report you wrote in this case?
It was.
Has anything been brought to your attention since you conducted your study and wrote your report that would cause you to change your mind?
No.
Your Honor, at this point, the state moves 9 through 17 into evidence.
Any objection, Mr. Selden?
No, Your Honor.
All right, State's Exhibits 9 through 17 are admitted into evidence.
Stevens, focusing on the insulin, is there a way to determine difference between insulin and insulin, I'm not sure how, Lispro, is that how it's pronounced?
There is human insulin, which is generated in the human body, and then there's human insulin, and there's insulin Lispro. Lispro is what we call an isomer, the same chemical formula, manufactured in a lab with a subtle difference, a change in order of the blocks that build it. So there is differences in the chemical structure, but our techniques will not tell them apart. So that's why the report says it's consistent with containing human insulin / Humalog. Humalog is the brand name for for insulin Lispro.
What's the intention or what's the use of insulin that you found in your lab?
Insulin is used to regulate blood sugar.
Could I have just a moment, please?
Yes, you may.
You didn't make any opinion or suggest any conclusion as to the contents in terms of volume of any of those vials, did you?
I did not.
Why not?
Our technical procedures don't have that as part of our routine analysis, and reporting measurements of significance, such as the volume of a vial, is not something our lab does.
That's all the questions the state has, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Let's take our mid-morning break at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll break for about 10 minutes. Enjoy the delicious donuts that we have placed in your jury room. Do not discuss the case.